Ever since the 15th Doctor was pulled out of the 14th Doctor at the end of the giggle, we've all been asking the same question. So what exactly does this mean? There's still so much about the concept of bi-generation that we simply don't know, but arguably the biggest question left dangling on that unit helipad was what's going to happen when the time comes for the 14th Doctor to regenerate? And further still, because they shared a bi-generation, is there more of a link between the 14th and 15th Doctors than we realise? He may currently have his feet up reading the paper with a cup of tea, but there is going to come a time when the 14th Doctor reaches the end of his life, whether that's via the natural decline of his body as he ages, or a Dalek blast to the face while he's on one of his little trips with Rose and Mel. Now, I've speculated in previous videos that this could result in 14 being pulled back to the moment of the bi-generation. Only this time it becomes a normal regeneration and he turns into the 15th Doctor, just like all the previous Doctors turned into their next selves. But to be honest, I don't think this is the neatest of solutions. I think if we're going to see the 14th Doctor's regeneration one day, then just replaying a scene from the giggle would be a little bit anticlimactic, wouldn't it? And more than a little uninspired. Instead, I think there's a much better solution right there in plain sight. One that not only incorporates a mysterious and oft-forgotten piece of Doctor Who lore, but one that also would allow the show to avoid any complicated questions about what the 14th Doctor's regeneration will physically look like, while also improving bi-generation by providing some important connective tissue that ties the 14th and 15th Doctors together. To explain, let's journey all the way back to 1981. Charles marries Diana in the wedding of the century, Indiana Jones is ruling the box office, and Tom Baker's Fourth Doctor is set to leave Doctor Who after an astonishing 7-year run, making him by far the longest-serving Doctor up to that point, and he still holds that record today. So his final story, Logopolis, saw him attempting to fix a problem with the TARDIS with the help of the mathematicians of the titular planet. And it also saw him stalked by an ominous figure, clad entirely in white, who never said a word. This figure was known as the Watcher, and throughout Logopolis it's made very clear that the Watcher is important in some way, but we're never really told exactly why. It follows the Doctor across the universe and even speaks to him and his companions in private, unheard conversations before answers are eventually revealed when the Doctor is on the brink of death. Now, a fun quirk of the classic series is that it was never consistent in terms of how its regenerations looked, compared to the standard golden glow that was established in the modern series. Between 1963 and 1996, Doctors would fade out, glow white, twist and contort, or pull some weird faces and fall in a hole. But the Fourth Doctor's regeneration in Logopolis was arguably the most unusual of the lot. After falling from a great height, the Doctor prepares to regenerate surrounded by his companions. The process doesn't begin straight away though until the Watcher appears and merges with the Fourth Doctor to create the Fifth Doctor, revealing that the Watcher had been the Doctor, or at least some strange, mysterious version of him the whole time.
He was the Doctor all the time.
It was the Doctor all along. You're welcome. While there's still a ton of mystery surrounding where the Watcher came from and why it emerged at that particular point in the Doctor's life, we are obviously told and shown in Logopolis that this is a version of the Doctor who aids the process of regeneration. And that's why it would be a perfect concept for Russell T Davies to borrow for the future of the 14th and 15th Doctors. Picture the scene. It's the 15th Doctor's final episode, and he's fallen after saving Belinda Chandra from the assembled might of the pantheon of the gods. He returns to the TARDIS and collapses to his knees, probably muttering about jelly babies, and that familiar start of regeneration sound begins to play. Then, out of nowhere, a hand reaches out and touches the 15th Doctor on the shoulder. An off-screen voice says, "It's okay. The moment has been prepared for," and the camera pulls back to reveal the 14th Doctor. It's David Tennant returning for a surprise cameo. Basically, the 14th Doctor becomes the 15th Doctor's Watcher. The two characters merge, and 15 then transforms into the 16th Doctor, in a similar process to what happened to the 4th Doctor all those years ago. Now look, I can already hear you saying that having David Tennant appear again would undercut Ncuti Gatwa's regeneration. And that might be true. It's also an idea that could be very, very silly if executed poorly. Now, I'm not saying that Tennant needs to be dressed from head to toe in loo roll, but regardless, it could feel a bit cheesy and a bit melodramatic. All the same though, you can't deny that there's something incredibly poetic about the 14th Doctor returning to aid the 15th Doctor's regeneration in the exact same way that 15 helped him in The Giggle. And hey, doesn't the idea of two Doctors ripping apart from each other like Velcro also sound incredibly dumb? And say what you like about the concept of bigeneration itself, but visually, it didn't come across as silly at all. The CGI in that scene was really, really well done, and it helped sell something that was probably quite ridiculous on the page. Now, alternatively, you could also do this without David Tennant. Just have the Watcher appear, the 15th Doctor mutter to himself, "It's him," and then throw up a quick flashback to a 14th Doctor scene, job's a good un. And just imagine how emotional and exciting it would be to see Tennant and Gatwa together again. To see the 14th Doctor be the 15th Doctor's helping hand, like how the 15th Doctor was his helping hand in The Giggle, I think this could be incredibly powerful and moving. Not to mention the fact that we would also see the two characters merge back into each other, almost like a reverse bigeneration, which would be a fitting way to then close that loop. Now, retroactively, this would also offer a fuller explanation for the Watcher's appearance in Logopolis. This Watcher would be the version of the third Doctor who bigenerated. During Logopolis, we're shown that the Watcher can pilot the TARDIS, and as Nyssa suggests, it seems to be a version of the Doctor. So the groundwork is there for Russell T Davies to outright confirm this. Now, there are some things you'd need to explain or hand-wave away, like how the Watcher seems to have knowledge of future events, or why none of the other Doctors have had a Watcher of their own. But nothing that couldn't be fixed with some good old Doctor Who technobabble.
It's the end, but the moment has been prepared for.
Now, like we mentioned at the beginning, the whole point of this theory is to solve what the 14th Doctor's regeneration will look like. Having him just fade away, die on an adventure, or regenerate into nothing would be a super disappointing payoff. And simply teleporting back to the unit helipad would be a bit too weird. Not to mention the fact that you'd have to get the setup exactly the same, even though all the actors would look older. 14 could also regenerate into a completely different Doctor, but that would then just create a whole other mess of Doctor Who's already buckling canon to deal with. And yes, granted, there's a good chance that we'll never see his regeneration at all. But for my money, taking the character off the board in some way is better than having him sit there in the background of every single Earth invasion going forward, while fans are constantly asking, why hasn't he bothered to help? This way, we never have to see the 14th Doctor again, right up until the moment the 15th Doctor needs his help to regenerate. It's clean, it's emotional, and it's reaffirming a forgotten piece of Doctor Who lore for a whole new generation. Remember too that Russell T Davies loves this sort of stuff. Ever since he started on the show in 2005, he's brought back old characters, old villains, and old concepts. And he also thinks it's important to introduce modern audiences to the history of the show. I mean, just look at those colorized, cut-down versions of classic serials, or the way that he embedded Pyramids of Mars into the season 1 finale. I mean, they could even give Logopolis similar treatment in order to explain the Watcher to people. Air the serial on BBC4 in the days after the 15th Doctor's regeneration. Note I say after, not before, because otherwise, spoilers. Or you could have a little Tales of the TARDIS episode where the Doctor reminisces about that time that he merged with a mummy after falling off a radio telescope. Russell has a soft spot for the 4th Doctor too, and as it stands, the Watcher is exclusively part of the 4th Doctor's era. With season 1 drawing heavily from the 4th Doctor's adventures in Pyramids of Mars, maybe season 2 and beyond will continue to take inspiration from that era. Who knows, eh? Who knows? Now, not to be too harsh here, but quite honestly, I don't think Russell actually thought about bigeneration half as much as we all have. So I'm betting that there's quite a lot of wiggle room in terms of how it will be used and explained going forward. I honestly don't think he's decided yet whether or not Ncuti Gatwa's regeneration will be a bigeneration or a bog standard passing of the torch. So, Russell, since I know that you're definitely watching this video, you can have this one on us, alright? Just get season 3 done as soon as you can, yeah? Cheers. Now, personally, I've been pretty vocal about not wanting David Tennant to return anytime soon. But in order to close the bigeneration loop and give Ncuti a departure that is poignant and unique, I would absolutely be okay with him coming back for this. Just so long as the scene in question kept the focus on Ncuti. And by that I mean, we don't need any melodramatic, I don't want to go, okay? Anyway, what do you guys think? Yay or nay to this theory? Let me know in the comments. And why not share the video on the various social media pages as well and see what others think too? Anyway, in the meantime, I've been Ellie for WhoCulture, and in the words of Riversong herself, goodbye, sweeties.